Did I hear that right? That one of the hospitals wouldn't admit her because they said she was over-medicated? That came out day 11 in the Lindsay Clancy trial when Rebecca Gelato was on cross-examination. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but first I want to talk about the motion to have Emily Thorndike, who is a TikToker, admitted as a defense witness. For those of you who haven't heard the story, you can go back a couple of videos for the whole thing. Emily Thorndike made a TikTok saying she used to work at McLean, which is the hospital where Lindsay stayed for 5 days. Emily made this video to dispute what had been said in the courtroom because she basically said McLean ain't all that, right? Even though the prosecution built up McLean to be this well-run facility that was highly staffed, that Lindsay got plenty of attention, there was great therapy that she was doing, and Lindsay wasn't accepting of that therapy. She didn't want to do the program, and then she left early. That's been the narrative. But Emily Thorndike said, no, I worked there. I worked there for 7 years. Now, granted, their paths did not cross. Emily had already left employment before Lindsay got there. That's the sticking point. Kevin Reddington filed a motion to have Emily come in and testify. And I'm reading from notes, but here's some of the things that came up when they were arguing that motion yesterday. He says that the prosecutor left the jury with the impression that McLean was a 5-star hospital with an abundance of staff and that they gave great treatment to Lindsay. The judge said the exact same thing I said, that Emily hadn't worked there at the same time. So how do we know that they hadn't changed things? Like maybe the operation process shifted, maybe the staffing levels shifted. So you are risking putting somebody up on the stand that says, well, it used to be like this. And then the prosecution could bring up somebody who goes, but it's not like that anymore. And here's all the evidence that it's not like that. And it sort of falls flat. The prosecution argued, brought up in the discovery phase, so she's not an expert. Her TikTok shows that she has not been followed the sequestration order that all the witnesses are under. And she's been watching videos all along, and she's been making videos all along, and that she hasn't, basically this isn't an indictment of McLean Hospital. This is the Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy, not McLean Hospital. They're not on trial here. Now, Sullivan likes this level of questioning, but he asked both sides, could you please work together and find someone? Maybe is there somebody who still works there? Now, I will tell you, I don't think anybody that works there is going to come forward and tell the truth. They're going to say probably nothing but glowing stuff. They're going to find the one person who will say great things. Now, I think the best option is there is data, there is reporting. I don't know how far back it goes, but every company keeps time cards. Like, you could go back and say, during the time she was here, based on her records during the time, here is what was happening, and they can capture time cards, they could probably capture like patient visits, all the medical records, like they can actually put together what it looked like for real when Lindsay was there, just based on the paper trail. I don't know that the prosecution has done that because they wanted you to be under the illusion that McLean is a great place, and Lindsay snubbed their care. The judge did decide he would take it under advisement. He's thinking about it. Ultimately, he would love to have somebody current come in and speak, but he's also willing to possibly voir dire Emily just to hear what she has to say. But he asked, like, hey, dig a little deeper and see if you can find maybe someone that's currently there, or so we think maybe someone who could also testify, so we have a balanced conversation. Now, on to Rebecca Gelato. She was one of the nurses. Now, Lindsay was kind of handed off to her when Julie Paul left the practice. So Lindsay sort of inherited her as her nurse. And she was getting such good care from Julie Paul. There's every reason to believe that when she moved to Rebecca Gelato, she would get the same care. Now, you'll see Rebecca Gelato is a named defendant in the malpractice suit that Lindsay filed. But she's also listed in this suit that Patrick Clancy filed. His is a wrongful death suit, and he's filing it on behalf of the estates of the 3 children. Rebecca Gelato is also named here, so she's named in both civil lawsuits. What came out on the stand was kind of ugly. It sounds like Lindsay was sending a lot of messages to Rebecca Gelato, and in my opinion, she just wasn't responding correctly. If someone sends you a message that says, and I'm quoting, "I feel concerningly numb right now, like I have no emotion whatsoever. I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care. What do I do about this?" To me, that you're asking your healthcare provider to please fucking do something. And it sounds like Gelato just responds like, this is normal. This is kind of what these meds do. If you start to feel suicidal or you believe you're going to harm yourself or anybody else, please go to the ER. What I've discovered is I've never been around anybody, knock on wood, I've never been around anybody who is suicidal, so I wouldn't know how to react in this situation. But I'm also not a trained professional. I'm not trained to look for it. I'm not trained to respond to it. But this, and I get it. There's a lot of people who say it who don't really mean it. But I don't love this notion where if someone says, I'm thinking about killing myself, your question is, well, do you have a plan? Like, how would you do it? And if they don't articulate to you an exact plan, then they must not really be seriously thinking about it. That's at least my interpretation of what's happening here, that there's a difference in talking about it or ideation and having a plan. And it's not until the person has a plan that it sounds like any of these medical professionals, at least these people, take anybody seriously. And I'm kind of thinking, if you got a plan, isn't it a bit too fucking late? Like, shouldn't we try to intervene when it's in the thought process? But that's just me. Now, this is important because Gelato testifies that there was an in-person visit on December 6th that Patrick attended to. It sounds like, other than Julie Paul, this was the only person that really had face-to-face interactions with Lindsay. And in her case, Patrick was also part of the conversation. He has now seen his wife deteriorating over the last couple of months. She's losing weight, she's not herself, she's not getting better. He is stepping in now, and he's demanding some attention for his wife. Now, she claims that she mentioned in this visit that Rebecca Gelato is claiming that she mentioned the possibility of an underlying bipolar disorder based on what she was seeing as Lindsay's reaction to Zoloft and some of the other antidepressants. They weren't working the way they were supposed to, and they were causing these really weird side effects. So she's dialing this back to possibly bipolar. She testifies that she remembers Patrick saying, my wife is not bipolar. And Lindsay kind of sat there quietly. She didn't say anything about it. I'm going to say this. Maybe this is very true. Maybe this is very true, okay? But you're the medical professional. So if you've got a husband in the room that says that can't be true, you say, no, sir, I'm the trained professional, and I think I know what I'm talking about. Imagine a husband and wife are sitting there, and you've just said to your wife, I'm sorry, but it looks like we're going to have to do more tests, but this might be cancer. And the husband goes, my wife doesn't have cancer. And you just go, oh, okay, then never mind. Fuck that. No, you keep going, and you keep insisting that that's what it is. And Gelato didn't do that. Gelato said she recommended Valium, but both Lindsay and Patrick expressed a desire for her to go back on Prozac. And she testifies that she knew that Prozac could cause problems if she had bipolar, but agreed to do it because that's what they wanted. I'm not the only one that thinks that's fucked up, right? That she was getting messages from Lindsay, and they were saying things like, she's having intrusive suicidal thoughts. She's wanting to die. Then she gets a message from Lindsay that she was going to go to the Women and Infants Hospital in Rhode Island. Now, according to Gelato, Lindsay told her that she was discharged from the program and that they suggested that she taper off the Seroquel. But here it is. On cross-examination, Lindsay Clancy went to the Women and Infants Hospital in Rhode Island as referred, but didn't end up staying in their program. This is the one where she was only there for half a day. Patrick was skiing with Dawson, and he gets called halfway through, and he has to come back and pick her up. Reddington asked several questions about her visiting that hospital, and Rebecca Gelato can't really recall because she doesn't work there. She wasn't part of that process. But she is asked if the reason she didn't stay there was because the hospital didn't want to admit her because they worried she was over-medicated. The prosecution made us believe that it wasn't the right program for her, and so she chose to leave. But here Reddington is saying they wouldn't take her because she was over-medicated. So if a hospital won't take you because you're over-medicated, you're fucking over-medicated, period.